Hey, what's up? You opened this video, so you want to look at my face. How nice of you. Thank you. Thank you very much for wanting to look at my face. On a more serious note, the patch breakdown is finally here. I'm gonna talk about it. Not gonna say actually that I'll try and make this fast, because every time I say I'm just gonna go through these changes fast, I just end up talking about it for like 2 hours. So I'm gonna try go through the changes fast, but just a small explanation on why it took so long, so much time to make this patch breakdown is because most of the changes are kind of like not self-explanatory, but I can understand and I agree with most of them. So I just didn't want to make a video because I was like, well, these changes are kind of obvious, most of them, but some of them aren't obvious, and I'm going to talk about them, and I'm going to tell you which I like and which I kind of don't like. So we're going to start with, so first of all, the camera zoom, I guess. Does that look good in the video? Yeah, that looks decent. Okay. So first, the camera zoom has been slightly increased. To be honest, I haven't really noticed it. I think I noticed it a bit, but that just means that it's good. I don't know. If you don't understand what that means, it means that you're now looking down at your hero from slightly higher than before. So that your hero, if like he was standing in front of you, like here on the screen, he's now a bit further out, which means that you can see the edges more and you can see an incoming gank more easily. I like the change personally. There were tons of suggestions to increase this distance before. I didn't really notice it, but it kind of feels good. So kind of maybe an underappreciated change, because it seems like not much, but just makes the gameplay experience that much better. Next, we have some hero gold changes for the kills. Basically, when you kill a hero, you get the normal kill gold, the assist gold, and then if you're close to the enemy hero that died, like within 1,000 range, I think, you get even more gold, like this bonus gold. And this gold has been lowered early game and late game. I think it's still lower than before, but basically you get less gold for just being near a kill. And what that means is that people who do bad things, terrible stuff like grouping up as 5 and choo-chooing you, will now get less gold for doing so. So screw those guys, right? They freaking suck. I hate it when I get pop trained. So pop trains are now less effective, but still this gold is still there, so they still get a bit of bonus gold for pop training you, but not as much. Then we have lane creeps. S2 is trying to make melee racks more useful. The 5th melee creep spawns at 45. So basically the number of creeps that spawn gets increased gradually throughout the game. I'm sure most of you have noticed, and they've basically swapped, and now like an extra ranged creep will spawn sooner and an extra melee creep will spawn later, and they're trying to encourage you to kill the ranged racks first. But I still don't think this makes any difference or much difference at all. It'll be kind of the same like before, where if you're really short on time, you will try and like get the ranged racks and escape, because the ranged racks has less armor and you can kill it faster. If you are really short on time and the enemy team is like gonna revive and destroy you, you're just gonna kill the ranged racks and escape. But those situations are so few, and the advantage it gives is so small that you're gonna just go for the melee racks anyway. Let's be serious here. So it doesn't change much. And to be honest, I would have preferred them to maybe make the ranged racks more important, because at the moment as it stands, it's just kind of like, I don't like it. But you know, a step in the right direction, I guess. So neutral creeps, basically the changes to sum up are easy camps are now they give more golden experience. Everything else gives less golden experience, except Asians, they give more experience but less gold. But basically overall the jungle gives less golden experience, and the reason for this is because S2 just, and myself included, we just got tired of seeing a jungle hero every game, and jungle hero excel and succeed and just dominate everyone. You know, like you start a game and there's someone picks Legionnaire, and then like you do well, and then late game you're like, oh wait, they have a Legionnaire who's like 2 levels above all of us and 500 GPM. How did that happen? So basically S2 are encouraging you to pick less junglers every single game and more like standard dual lane setups. So I welcome this change. In addition, it says here it says it is a nerf, but it's actually a buff, kind of. Damage creeps deal to heroes has now been reduced from 75% to 50%. So if you don't know, this is kind of a mechanic from Warcraft 3/Dota 1, which is not mentioned anywhere in HoN, and you just basically have to know it. But you know how by default heroes have 5 magic armor and they take 25% less damage from magic damage by default, most heroes. Well, kind of the same works for creeps trying to attack heroes. If you're sometimes wondering why do creeps deal so little damage to your hero, well, it's because by default creeps deal only 75% of damage to your hero, and on top of that there's armor as well, which reduces it further. So basically now the heroes only take half damage from neutrals, which makes jungling basically easier. So the jungle is now easier to do because they deal less damage to you. It's simpler. Maybe even new jungler heroes will arise because you just don't take as much damage as before, but you get less golden experience for it. So there's a bunch of new creeps. There's one that gives vision, one that creates a slow in an area when it dies, which kind of works in a strange way. That's the one creep that I kind of feel weird about, because when you're jungling it just slows you down. Then there's the Necromancer. There's a hero, a creep in Dota 2 and Dota 1 that summons stuff from corpses, and I never liked him because most of the summoned units in the game are already really bad, except for like the puzzle box. But like really late game, for example, War Beasts, Hounds, or I don't know, maybe even Keepers, Doggies, really late game, they become useless. And I mean, this is not even a hero that summons zomblings or whatever summoned units. This is a creep that summons really like weak stuff. So are you really gonna dominate it and try push with it? It just kind of, it's just extra micro for like such a minor gain. So yeah, I think they could have done better on these abilities. Then there's the Alchemist ability, which is interesting, I guess, which basically works like Alchemist Bones, but doesn't give you the bonus gold. But then again, very few heroes will take advantage of this, and it's kind of like weird. I suppose it gives you the option to increase your farming speed, and the Far Side is the only one which I kind of like, which actually gives you a use for a creep, which wasn't there before. But overall, I like these changes because jungle is now fun. Before I wouldn't have followed like this is this jungle, this is this type of jungle, I have to go here and then I have to go here, and now it's more like, oh, I'll just go in the jungle and I have no clue what's going on, I'm just killing stuff and having fun. And it is really fun, and my microphone isn't fun when it's making weird noises. But yeah, basically the jungle is now more random and there's more abilities and more fun, and I really like it. So I really welcome these changes. Again, these are like changes that kind of seem minor. You're like, oh, just some new creeps, who cares? But it actually plays really well and fun. So yeah, I like it. Next we have towers have been kind of buffed, so now they pierce 25% of all armor. If you don't know what that means, it means it ignores 25% armor, so think kind of like Lodestone's ultimate, which ignores 100%, or Rally's passive, which ignores 60%. So towers kind of now ignore your armor, so you can't tank them as good. And also summoned units deal less damage, which is weird considering they implemented that summoned unit like creep that summons zomblings, so that's worse as well, which was already pretty bad. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I never actually tried the zomblings, but I just assume they're terrible. So yeah, summoned melee units summoned melee units damage player controlled neutral damage against her. What? Are these two changes like basically the same? Summoned melee units damage reduced and player controlled neutral. Okay, whatever. All creeps that are player controlled deal less damage to towers. There, I made it easier. Next we have tournament rules changes. Clank, Science Stone, and Spell Sunder added. All I can say about this is that both three, that's a good one, both three. All three of those units are kind of underpowered, so they're being released in other parts. There's basically no risk of suddenly everyone going, oh my god, this is broken. Yeah, Spell Sunder is like Slither Sunder, good on one hero, kind of. Iron Stone, decent item, but nothing too crazy. And Clanks, yeah, we know what Clanks does. So we're going to move on to actual hero changes. So first there's the rework for Cthulhu. I'll sum it up pretty quickly. I'm not going to go through all of this in detail. Trample pushes units longer, stun, kind of the same basically, kind of the same. It's only a bit better if you're like pushing creeps into someone, but kind of the same. Hook'em now, it deals damage in front of you. So when you kill a creep and you get that shield, you will deal a bit of damage in front of you, which speeds up farming and basically makes this hero less of a boring tank and more of a fun damage dealing hero, and speeds up your farming, which this was just a general change across the board. Most jungler heroes received some kind of speed up in farming to make up for the much lower golden experience you now get from jungling, kind of. So yeah, second skill basically became interesting. Then the third skill, which kind of a skill that I don't understand / agree with, because it's strange. So basically, it's a good idea. You turn on your third skill and anyone who's looking at you will start attacking random people, kind of like Puppet Master does with his second skill, except it's passive if you're looking at Cthulhu too long in his direction. You have to like look away and wait a bit, and then you can look at him again. And it's interesting because it's synergized with Cthulhu, and he's scary and spooky and he's gonna kill you and you have to run away. And it kind of synergizes in a sense that it makes someone stay on you and like face you, which is good for his second skill because he blocks damage from the front, and his ultimate also deals damage in the front. At the same time, it's weird on this hero because it's basically a really good escape mechanism. So this was a tanky hero, already tanky hero, which has a Q skill that allows him to charge away, which is essentially a pseudo blink, allows you to blink away. So a tanky hero that can blink away. And now on top of that, you have a third skill, which kind of makes it really difficult to chase you. So kind of weird play there. I mean, like, it's a cool skill, but I'm not sure what exactly is it doing on this hero. Kind of weird. It's a cool skill, I guess, but the gameplay it gives is kind of strange. So I think that could have been done better. And last but not least, we have ultimate, a change I actually don't like. So the overall damage has been increased, but it comes at a cost. So now you start with dealing less damage than before. So you know how you activate your ultimate in Cthulhu and it starts like blowing water in front of you, right? So now at the start it deals less damage, and as the skill goes, like as it keeps blowing water, it deals more and more damage, all in the same like duration. So the bad thing about that is that sometimes you just want to deal a lot of damage fast, and now that's worse. You basically deal a bit less damage at first, I think, and then more damage later on, and overall it like adds how much? Like 100 damage. Wow, big whoop if you land all of them, kind of. So yeah, I would even say I prefer the old version. I mean, the idea is cool that, oh, it deals more damage with time. That's so interesting and meta. But in reality, it's just not practical. So I don't know, maybe that was part of a nerf. But here it's not marked as a buff or a nerf, it's marked as like kind of average, like not a buff or a nerf, but I think this is kind of a nerf. Next we have Shadowblade. I'm surprised they called this a rework because it's essentially just a buff to the hero, which just finally took them ages to do this. So your first, second, and third skills all last longer, so you stay in that special form longer, and also your ultimate now no longer thinks of yourself as an agility hero, but thinks of yourself as whatever stat you actually have, and not just magically agility no matter which form you're in. And also the ultimate is a bit easier to use, lower mana cost, caster reduce, and South of the Master. So basically a buff to Shadowblade to actually make him interesting, and also it makes 3 builds viable now in the hero, and makes the hero actually fun, because now you can either stack a ton of strength and be this super tanky mess, or a ton of agility like before and be this super fast attacking damage dealing hero, or a ton of intelligence and deal a lot of damage from a distance. So now I have 3 options instead of just one, kind of. And the mistake a lot of people do with Shadowblade still is they just get all stats, like a Dawnbringer and like a Nullstone. But like, the point of the hero is not to get all stats, like even though he kind of benefits and switches forms. The point right now of Shadowblade is you pick one stat and you stack that one stat. But you have 3 options right now, which I think are all equally viable. So gonna be interesting what people choose to do with that. But yeah, basically stack a ton of intelligence, use your ultimate on yourself, stack more intelligence, and then you end up with like 300 intelligence and deal like 2000 damage per shot. So then we have Staff of the Master Effect. I've heard mixed opinions on it. Like, a lot of people think it's broken. I think it's shit. So I'll explain why I think it's bad. So in strength form it gives you cleave. Oh, it's actually less cleave than... Oh, I was reading these patch notes before and it was like 60, 80, and 100%, but now it's less. So I guess they corrected the patch notes, and it's actually worse than I even thought. So let me ask you, how many heroes actually get a cleaver now? There's Scout, Dark Lady, sometimes Magebane. 3 heroes. That's it. On Swiftblade, for example, I've stopped going cleaver because it's just bad. On Madman, I also stopped going cleaver because it's just bad. Yes, it gives the cleave, but the cleave isn't as good as you'd think. Like, it helps you farm kind of slightly, but in a one-on-one situation doesn't really give you much, and it's just an item that gives you damage. Okay, the regen is good though, but okay, damage and what? No chasing ability, no escape ability. There's just Cleaver is not that good of an item anymore. Very few heroes get it, and okay, it gives you 30, 50, 70% cleave, which is until you reach like level 11 or 16, it's not even that much. And like, do you really need the farming speed then from your Q? You're probably going to be farming in your second or third form anyway. So then there's the second form, the agility form. Can you actually see it right now? Yeah, you can see everything. Good. And there's the second agility form. It gives you unit walking and true strike. So true strike, for those who don't know, is never missing. So it ignores enemy evasion, which is usable, or not usable, useful in two cases. Number one, the enemy team or the enemy hero actually has some form of evasion. So this could be like Wingbow. Number two is when you're a ranged hero attacking uphill. There's the 25% uphill miss chance, which you will now ignore. I'm not sure how this works because agility form is melee. So basically you get true strike, which is only useful if the enemy has evasion because you're melee anyway. You're not going to be attacking uphill. So that's kind of weird and weak. And intelligence form, the only arguably useful actually effect is all your attacks drain mana equal to 80% of your intelligence. So if you have like 300 intelligence, you will like drain 250 mana from the enemy. And by drain, I'm not sure if it actually steals it. I think it steals it, but you don't actually deal damage. Like, you don't deal 250 bonus damage per hit. But it's basically useful to run someone out of mana quickly. So if there's an enemy hero which really depends on mana heavily, you can just pick up a Staff of the Master, because these strength and agility forms are kind of bleh. They're just bleh. Bad. So roll Staff of the Master, pretty bad item, which also suffers from the same problem on Shadowblade builds. Is it gives you a bit of everything, but you don't want everything. You want one stat, okay? You don't want a bunch of different stats altogether for a really horrible price. So Staff of the Master is shit. Let's move on. Next, silhouette rework. I'm not gonna go through this. I'm just gonna tell you quickly what it does. Basically, silhouette now has less attack range, as you can see, 600 reduced to 350, and everything else is buffed. Everything else is better about the hero. What this means is that early game you'll be much worse, because that lower attack range is pretty difficult to play. You basically harass worse, it's harder to last hit. You're still a ranged hero though, so you don't benefit from melee stuff. Basically, early game is much more difficult, and late game you're a much better carry because everything else is buffed. And also this makes positioning based items more necessary on the hero, so like a portal key or a Frostwolf skull, because you just need to keep people close to you, or you just don't get to attack them because the range is so low. You need a way to stay together, like close to them, to keep attacking. So I like this change because it adds uniqueness to the game. It adds a new unique option of a carry that has low range and carries really hard, kind of like Moon Queen, but with lower cooldowns and more focus on actually dealing damage with attacks. So yeah, it just basically makes Silhouette interesting and more ninja-y, but more difficult. And I tried, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will go, can you make a Silhouette video? We want to see how the rework plays. Like I mentioned in my Riptide video, I recorded like 3 games and I won all of them, and I kind of dominated in all of them, but they were boring because I just farmed, and they're like, after like 30 minutes into the game I started dominating, and then the enemy team just conceded. And it's just more boring to watch because you can't really do much early game anymore, but you dominate late game. But I don't know. So yeah, she just received a bunch of buffs. So if you see a Silhouette, kite her, because if you stay in melee range of her, you're gonna have a bad time. So we're gonna move on to some hero changes. There's Artillery. His first skill has been buffed. It's basically much easier to land and costs less mana, so I really like that buff. I tried it in Mid-Wars, it was pretty cool. I think Artillery did need this buff. His first skill is kind of his signature skill, and it needed some help, so I like that. Good change. Bombardier, the second skill now deals damage to buildings, which is kind of weird and meh, but the more important change is that your first skill can now be used on allies, and I'll try and make a video about it. I kind of recorded a bit now, but you can throw the bomb and stick it to an ally or even yourself, which is actually not just useful for fun in like Legionnaire and Hag, but is also really useful when, for example, you're playing against an Accursed, and his shield, which dispels debuffs, just dispels your bomb from anyone, unless you like use it on yourself on an ally and then run up in melee range, and you can still stun him then. So it kind of counters this thing where Accursed destroys Bombardier. So Bombardier is more useful in that case, and yeah, just overall buffs to Bombardier. I think he needed help, everyone will agree. So yeah, Bombardier is cooler now. Bubbles ultimate cooldown increased. I hate Bubbles, such an annoying hero, just teleports out of nowhere, silences and stuns your entire team, and you're screwed. Screw you, Bubbles, you enjoy that nerf, bitch. So next we have Chronos. This basically makes his suicide potential kind of lower. Your third skill, there's a timer on, so basically it stuns every 5 attacks, but there's also a timer on it, where if you don't attack for 5 seconds before, it would just decrease 1 charge anyway, so eventually you will get a stun even if you don't hit anything. So now that time has been increased, and the skill is basically a bit worse on level 1, because the stuns will have so much time between them. And I like that change, I welcome it. Chronos Suicide is just BS. So yeah, hate it, goodbye. Next we have Demented Shaman changes, which first of all, Unbreakable, the projectile speed on it is so freaking horrible. I think I even like tried to cast it on myself, and it flew to myself longer. Like I casted it, and while it was flying to myself on the same position, I died and it didn't work. I think I had those situations. Or when you cast on an ally, of course, that's much more often. Why is the skill so freaking slow anyway? So my opinion on Demented Shaman is that, first of all, these changes are good. They're very useful. Unbreakable is easier to land. But second opinion I have on Demented Shaman is that I don't like how the hero is, and I think he's really underpowered. So yeah, before I thought how Martyr and like Shadowblade are underpowered, and Martyr kind of is still sucky late game, but I don't know, he's really good early game at least. And Shadowblade is fixed now. But Demented Shaman is gonna be our let's talk bad about him hero. Because his first skill is pretty bad, like the slow is good maybe for the 3 seconds, and the stun kind of, but like it's kind of bad. This hero is basically just his heal, his third skill. He heals and deals damage too. So the whole strategy of Demented Shaman is you get your heal and you wait for the enemy to come close to the creep wave and you heal bomb him. And that's all the hero does. The second skill kind of helps as well for people to survive. So I'd like these changes on Demented Shaman. I thought about this, so my ideas were, first of all, make first skill not bad. It deals like barely any damage, and it's physical damage, so it's even worse late game. And it's a magical skill, so it deals physical damage, but is magical and doesn't go through magic community. What gives? It's just bad. So my idea was make the first skill reduce armor, because it's physical damage. Why not? Just make it reduce armor, make it useful. And the second skill I wanted to buff so that it gives more damage. If you didn't know, Unbreakable, while it's on you, the cape, it gives you bonus damage. So I wanted it to give more damage so that you can maybe even max it early and abuse that attack damage somehow, and like that would be a build, that would be interesting. Third skill doesn't need changes, and the ultimate, I thought, well, what if it like gave damage too? Didn't reduce damage with every tick, but with every tick gave a bit of damage so that you could use it on your allies and yourself and just push with it in an interesting way. So yeah, I'd make those kind of changes to Demented Shaman, because at the moment the hero, I just find him one of the worst heroes in the game. So good changes in the right direction, but not enough. Try harder. Devourer can no longer deny himself if he has taken damage within the last second from another player, which basically eliminates the cheap denies where you just deny yourself randomly and then you just blame it on skill. So you can still do skillful denies, but just not super lucky shit denies. Electrician ultimate cooldown has been reduced. Whatever help this hero gets is good, because he's just bad. He needs help. Good. Good, I like it. Good. Electrician ultimate more useful. Nice. Emerald Warden, the second skill has received an interesting change where it now reveals and sights enemies after the wolves have landed. So you send a wolf, it lands on someone, and now you will see that person even if he's invisible. And yeah, that's pretty much it for a short duration, which I like. It's a good change. Emerald Warden needed some help. I think he's one of the weaker kind of carries at least, but he's just good in team fights. Yeah, interesting change. He's more of a side-based hero now. And yeah, I welcome it. Good change. That was good. Flux is no longer crap at his second skill. His second skill, which like took ages to use, like pull someone closer or push away, now takes much less time. So this first of all makes his combo much easier to land, the W and then followed by Q, because the time it took for you to like charge it and pull someone closer, they would just like stay in at roughly the same place as they did while running away. So like you use it here, pull them closer, and while you cast your Q, he'd already be like here somewhere anyway. So second skill of Flux is now less annoying, and yeah, good quality of life changes. Did they say that it's a quality of life change? They didn't, but it's a quality of life change. Better life quality, whatever. Geomancer, the first skill, range has been increased. Geomancer needs buffs. There, I'm gonna say it. Geomancer needs buffs. This is not enough. Wow, extra range and Q. Thanks, I guess. More buffs, please. Make him useful late game. Make his ultimate a bit better, please. Next we have Grinix, knee-jerk reaction. Everyone's like, oh wait, Grinix is kind of good now. Let's destroy him. Agility gain lowered to 1.8. That could be now the worst primary stat gain in the game. The lowest. 1.8 agility gain. So one agility gain nerf is huge because late game, when you're like level 20, that's 20 less agility. That's pretty significant. That's like, if you reach level 25, you basically lose that plus 25 agility item now. So, knee-jerk reaction. Grinix was like, okay, he was strong, but he didn't need this much of a nerf. Okay, like reduce it to maybe 2.4 or 2.3 or 2.5, but 1.8, really? You're just gonna say, okay, this hero cannot carry at all now. Like, he could be even worse than Midas at carrying now. I don't know. My build is still kind of decent where I get a Codex, but I mean, did he really need this much of a nerf? This is a nerf to attack speed, not just damage, and armor as well. Like, he loses like 3 armor, which is kind of significant. So, yeah, just ugly change. I don't agree with it. Way too much of a nerf. Next, we have Hammerstorm, which needed buffs, I think. His third skill is basically not as bad. Gives more armor, lower mana cost, cooldown lower. Yeah, third skill. You're basically encouraged to max your third skill earlier, which could be now a better idea than just leveling your stats, which brings me to another point. Your second skill is a cleave. Let's be honest, when do you get a cleave and how useful is it? Not that useful, right? The cleave is okay, but it's not like super good, which is why I think the Staff of the Master and Shadow Blade is bad. But yeah, maybe now you can actually max your third skill instead of stats, because it gives a lot of armor for, well, now 0 mana cost if you level it on level 4. So yeah, that's a really good and interesting change in Hammerstorm. I like it. Kraken reduced movement speed from 310 to 300. I like this change because Kraken didn't need 310 movement speed. I mean, he has a second skill which closes like the gap between him and someone else, like a Pseudo Blink, which also stuns. He has a first skill which slows, an ultimate which slows and stuns. Why does this hero need above average movement speed? I have no idea. And he's tanky. He doesn't need that much movement speed. Next, a change I don't like, Midas. The cooldowns of his second and the first skill have been swapped, as I understand. So now your first skill has a much higher cooldown, and your second skill has a much lower cooldown. And I don't like this change because it's a nerf, and Midas didn't need a nerf. Could they not think of some other way to do this? I mean, they're trying to promote people to level your second skill, but people don't level the second skill because it's hell of a lot freaking harder to land, that's first of all, and it's just worse. Okay, it heals, it doesn't slow. It's bad for killing people, which is what you want early game. And then later on it doesn't even matter. So now they're making that worse. They're like, oh, level your second skill, it doesn't slow and kind of it's harder to land, but we want this hero nerfed because he's been so powerful obviously lately. Like, Midas is one of the worst carries in the game already, if not the worst. Because like he has the worst stat gains combined or something, and the attack animation. Like, does this hero really need another nerf? Could you not find a different way to do it, or buff him in some other way? So yeah, bad change. Who thought of this? Bad. Next, Moon Queen. Base movement speed reduced, and ultimate damage reduced. Okay, ultimate damage is fair enough. The ultimate deals some pretty ridiculous damage, and I'm not sure if that nerf was needed, but I mean, Moon Queen has her strengths and weaknesses. Movement speed. This hero did not need 320 movement speed, which is like the highest in the game if you don't count Blitz. This hero just didn't need that. That's retarded. So finally that retardedness looks good. Next, Pestilence. Knee-jerk reaction. His second skill was one of the best stuns in the game because it had like a super low mana cost and super low cooldown and stun for a really long time, 2.5 seconds. And now it's like only 1.75 seconds. I mean, Pestilence was good. He's still kind of like is good, but like he wasn't broken or anything. He was decent. Why does this hero receive such a huge nerf? That's like a huge stun duration reduction. Like, it's a good, like, I mean, not a good, a really strong nerf to his second skill. It turns it from one of the best stuns in the game to one of the mehest, like one of the, just an average skill now. Knee-jerk reaction, and they also on top of that increase the mana cost of your ultimate, which I can agree with because it can be annoying how you can just always keep the ultimate up on you, and there's no counterplay against it because like as soon as it runs out he just puts it on you again because it costs like virtually no mana. And I can agree with the nerf in the second skill, but I think this is just too much. He didn't need this, so yeah, Pestilence saw a bit of competitive use, and obviously he needs a nerf, obviously. Polywog Priest, his third skill no longer costs a ridiculous amount of mana for no reason, and same for ultimate, kind of less. Meh, whatever. Polywog Priest could use a small nerf. This isn't much, but meh, whatever. Prisoner. His starting damage has been increased to compensate for the other change where his passive no longer increases your base damage passively all the time, but instead gives you base damage based on how many of your abilities are on cooldown. So when you use all three of your abilities, like the hook and then the chain with the ball and then the ultimate, you will have more damage than before. But if you don't use any of those skills, you will have no damage compared to before, except that +4 base damage buff, as you can see. So before you would get your third skill passive in lane so that you could last hit easier, right? But now he's a bit worse early game, though his starting damage has been buffed, so it's still kind of easy to last hit with the hero. A bit worse early game, but much stronger late game and much better as a carry, which I really like because he's already kind of strong early game, either way, with the passive or without. And now he's just going to be stronger late game. And also this is like basically 90% base damage while all of your skills are on cooldown, which is almost a double damage rune. You basically almost have a double damage whenever you use all your skills, which should be most of the time in team fights. That's pretty big. So don't forget, kids, base damage is based on your primary attribute. If you get like a Doombringer, it gives 0 base damage. If you get like +10 strength, that actually gives base damage. So get strength on Prisoner, a lot of it. Revenant. Base attack time lowered, so Defile slow duration and like mortification prioritizes enemies. That's like whatever. The important thing here is base attack time lowered. So this isn't just an attack speed buff. This is a maximum attack speed buff, where basically there's two heroes that I know of now. Like one is Revenant, the other is Magebane, which have an inherently lower base attack time. So the base attack time is like your base attack speed. So basically, if you get like 300 attack speed, these two heroes, Revenant and Magebane, will attack the fastest in the game. So on Revenant, it's kind of strange because it's the first ranged hero with such a low base attack time that I know of. Because on Magebane, you can get like melee-based items that benefit from attack speed, like a Brutalizer. And it's really good on Magebane because he just attacks so many times so fast. On Revenant, though, he doesn't really benefit from melee items like a Brutalizer, so on him it's a little bit interesting, but it's just cool to see one more hero, a ranged one, with this low base attack time, but can attack really fast. And you can explore carry builds on Revenant now, which makes Revenant more interesting, and Revenant did need a buff, so I really like this change. Next, Slither, his attack range has been reduced by 50. It's kind of a significant nerf because it allows heroes with 600 range to harass him easier. I need to drink something. I'm sorry, my throat is dying. Okay, I feel better. So yeah, Slither, super annoying hero, but Slither is like, his second and first skills allow you to harass pretty much anyone out of the lane and just be a real annoyance. At the same time, the problem with the hero is that, first of all, he's not too useful late game, not too good of a carry. I have no idea what he's even supposed to be, kind of a support, I guess. And the third skill sucks balls. Like, there's no incentive to level your third skill because it's just so bad. Like, even for a pushing strategy, it just gives your enemy extra golden experience, kind of. So I would have preferred them to maybe kind of make the third skill more useful and worth leveling and kind of change the hero in that way than just pretty much say, well, okay, let's see, the first and second skill are so good that and everyone gets them all the time, so we need to make
his range worse so that he can harass worse with that one playstyle. How about you add another playstyle so that maybe people stop using that second and first skill build and just harass everyone out with no chance of doing anything? How about you like promote leveling your third skill so that maybe this won't be much of a problem anymore? I don't know, just buff the third skill in some interesting way, but no, they just reduce his range, and yeah, sucks to be Slither, basically. Next, Solstice. Your third skill no longer deals 75% of damage to creeps, now deals 100%, which is good. And your second skill, the sun version, the day version, that deals damage over time in an area, it no longer blocks neutral camps, so you can basically stack with it. You can use it at like what was the time? I don't know, 53 seconds on creeps that are far away while you're farming some other camps, and it will stack. So now you can stack with it. So good buff to Solstice. Remember that this is part of those changes which improve junglers now. Basically an overall buff to most junglers. Next we have Valkyrie. Call of the Valkyrie. Second hit always targets closest instead of random. Quality of life change. So if you didn't know, Valkyrie's first skill deals 2 damages. Like first is the general in the huge AoE, and then 1 to random enemy that's close, half of the damage. So now that random enemy is no longer random, it's just the closest, which is how it should have been before. Yeah, so that's good. Vindicator, Glyph of Silence, cooldown increased. So first of all, I will say that Vindicator is indeed still underpowered. I hate the hero because he's just too weak. He needs buffs, I think, more. Those buffs weren't enough, the previous ones. So why nerf? Why the nerf on this? So I don't want to say that S2 balances for pubs, but the third skill, the Glyph of Silence that he summons, the book that silences nearby skill cast, was pretty annoying in mid-wars. Yeah, I'm not saying S2 is balancing for mid-wars, but it was pretty annoying in mid-wars, and this hero didn't really need a nerf, and it was nerfed, so suspicious. And yeah, I don't agree with this change. I mean, you can nerf this skill, okay, but buff something else, please. This hero needs help. War Beast, his hounds have more armor and deal more damage early. Yeah, part of those jungle changes, whatever, don't care. Good, okay. Next we have items, Token of Life, duration lowered from 7 minutes to 5 minutes, which I like. Basically now when you get a Token of Life after you kill a Kongur, you don't just go and farm for 20 minutes, you now just go and push, kind of, which is better. Good change. Alchemist Bones can now be used on player-controlled units, which allows you to pick up Alchemist Bones as kind of a counter to some heroes like Ophelia and whatnot. So it's no longer this item that helps you farm that like 2 heroes in the game get. Like, I don't know, maybe like a Puppet Master and what's his name, Wild Soul. Now it can actually be used as a counter, kind of, which makes it more interesting and better. Good change. Next we have a courier change, so the gold cost has been reduced from 200 to 100, so if you kill the courier by mistake, it's easier to buy a new one, which is good. And the summoned unit damage from the courier lowered from 3 health to 1. I thought that was in the game already, so this change didn't really come as much of a surprise to me. So I'll say that my idea for the courier was part of my other idea, which was make wards free. Not all wards, not the wards of revelation, but normal wards of sight, because there's just so much rage because of wards. Like, someone doesn't buy wards and people rage and people like grief and toxic community and everyone flames each other. I think it would just be for the better for everyone if like supports didn't have to worry about buying wards every game and just having shit items whole game long. Oh, excuse me. So yeah, that was my idea, and part of that idea was to make also the courier free, so the courier would automatically upgrade to a flying one after like 2 minutes, so you couldn't buy a flying one to just become automatic. And also, if the courier died, which I think is kind of something like this is in Dota, I'm not sure, it would just revive after some time instead of just dying entirely. So the courier would basically be free. That's my idea. Just basically reducing the range and giving support players a bit of a break, really, and just reducing the range in general. But instead they just lower the ground courier cost, which makes it easier to buy after it dies, which doesn't really affect that much, to be honest. So kind of a meh change, whatever. Energizer has been nerfed. So there's this problem with Energizer, which basically gives any hero in the game a lot of movement speed very easily, which is bad for the game because movement speed is supposed to like be this resource where like you get boots, which gives you movement speed, and like you can't have 2 pairs of boots, you can only have 1, and you have to pick one, you have to carefully choose. There's some items that increase movement speed, but they're usually difficult to get, not on all heroes, like Dawnbringer, like Firebrand. And there's a lot of slow-based skills and items, which you kind of have to play around, like, and try and counter them. And then there's Energizer, which is like, hey, you want movement speed? Here you go. You want more movement speed? Here you go. It basically was too easy. And this was nerfed. I'm not sure if it was nerfed enough. I mean, I wish this item was completely reworked, so I'll just say this change was in the right direction. The Energizer did need a nerf. It's just basically cheap movement speed for anyone. But what I didn't like is that I had a different idea for Energizer, which was to kind of rework it, where what I wanted to do was I would keep the passive movement speed, like it gives 20 movement speed or whatever. It gave 10, I think, but yeah, just for having the item. And what I would do is I would give it an aura, that was my idea, that gives allied units, like creeps, not heroes, just creeps only, either your own or like the neutral creeps, like the ones in lane, extra movement and attack speed. So that if you have an Energizer, you can basically make the creeps run faster at the lane and basically push with speed and make them attack a bit faster and push with that too. So it would be good on summoning heroes or just on any hero who can who wants to push the lane sometimes, and it would just give decent stats. And I would completely remove the active, like the ability to boost your movement speed randomly. That's just like ghost marchers in an area. Meh. So yeah, Energizer, that's the change I would make to Energizer, but instead they just nerfed the current one, so whatever. Icebrand basically slows a bit better, same for Frostburn and Frozen Light and Dawnbringer. Basically the slow from the Icebrand is no longer as bad, which is a good change, I agree with it. Icon of the Goddess is an interesting item. I think it could be like kind of improved so that more heroes can pick it up. Not sure how, but at the time they kind of nerfed it slightly, but not really, where it gives less mana regen than before. Like you regenerate less mana after a kill. I mean, when you kill someone, you know how you get health and mana. Now you get less health and mana, like regen, but you get it for longer. So you restore the same amount of health as before when someone dies near you, but it takes longer. So it's basically a slight nerf. It makes it so that if you get a bunch of kills in a row, it's no longer as impossible to kill you. Then a good change to Iron Buckler, which was an item which basically every melee hero had to get because it was just so good. It now blocks less damage, so that when a hero has an Iron Buckler, it's actually possible to harass him, and you're no longer like basically super bad if you're a support with low damage against it. And the cost has been lowered slightly so that there's more build diversity, where now you have, I believe, if you get a hatchet and a buckler, you now have 153 gold, which gives you some options, like you can get a +3 stat item, or you can get like a health potion and the minor totem now. So basically some kind of extra build diversity, and just a nerf to this item so that you don't have to always get it. And to be honest, first of all, I love this change because it increases build diversity so that people don't get this item every game. And I have started actually not getting a buckler every game on a melee hero. Like I still always get a hatchet, but now I like get a couple of minor totems and like a bunch of blightstones, like 6 or 9, or a mana potion instead of an Iron Buckler. So yeah, makes the game more interesting. I like this change. And last but not least, finally, how long have I been talking for? 43 minutes. Yeah, 43. Yeah, let's make this a short video, I said. Striders now give 2 HP regen when you have charges. So the thing I think about this is it's weird. I mean, it's an interesting change to Striders. It's an interesting buff. Okay, I admit. Like giving 2 extra HP regen. Cool. Yeah, whatever. The problem with this change is that never in my life, well, okay, maybe it was once or twice, but never really was I running with Striders from one lane to another and thinking, damn it, wish I had more health regen right now. That would be so, like, the whole point of Striders is that you can go like fast from one lane to another, or like from base to lane. Where does health regen come into that? Like, usually you'd need mana, and S2 said that they did test mana regen on this item instead of health regen, or like both, but it didn't work out because it basically made mana regen items not important when you had Striders, which is not good. You should worry about mana. That's kind of part of the game depth and difficulty. But health regen is kind of strange. I didn't really ever need health regen in Striders. I just got like a potion or something. So yeah, just strange change, but a decent buff to Striders, which I don't mind. So yeah, I think something else could have been done, but whatever, this change is good. And that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Enough. Those are my my thoughts on the changes. I give this patch overall a 8 out of 10 or something. Yeah, some changes were good, some changes were meh, but overall I think this is a good patch. And a big theme of this patch is that all the changes kind of seem not important and minor, but when you actually play the game and try them out, it's actually more fun now. Like the jungle is more fun, some items are more fun, some heroes are more fun, it's just basically more fun now, which is good. So I'm giving it a good mark, 8 out of 10. Even though there weren't many changes, they were kind of good. And I will see you guys next time.